right, so we've got a pretty fascinating case for our deep dive today. It's called Infantile Tremor Syndrome.
Yeah.
And, well, it mainly pops up in babies, like between 6 and 18 months old.
Right.
And it's, well, the more we dig into it,
Yeah.
the more kind of complex it seems to get.
Oh, for sure. I mean, what really makes this a tough one to crack is that it's like not just one thing you're looking at,
Right.
It's this whole bunch of symptoms all bundled up together, developmental delays,
Right.
You see these noticeable tremors, and then you've got anemia on top of that.
Right.
It's that combo,
Yeah.
That's what really sets it apart.
It's like trying to put together a puzzle, but like some of the pieces just don't seem to fit.
Right.
And to make things even, I don't know, more interesting.
Yeah.
This syndrome, it was first spotted over in the Indian subcontinent.
Right.
But now it's like showing up in different parts of the world, which, that just brings up a bunch more questions.
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
I mean, that geographical spread is definitely like a big hint, right?
Yeah.
It makes you think that environmental stuff might be involved.
Right.
But before we get too far ahead of ourselves, maybe we should sort of break down what we know about these, kind of puzzling symptoms, right?
Okay, yeah, let's do that.
Okay.
So first off, you've got this developmental regression thing, which basically means these babies, they might have been hitting those milestones, right?
Yeah.
Like babbling, sitting up, or even like, starting to walk.
Right.
And then all of a sudden, things stall out.
Yeah.
Or, even worse, they lose those abilities.
Yeah.
And, I mean, if you're a parent listening to this, I can only imagine how scary that would be.
Oh, absolutely. I mean,
yeah.
And then on top of that, there are the actual tremors themselves, right? It's not like these are just, tiny little shakes that you can barely see. We're talking about what doctors call coarse tremors.
Yeah.
These they're very pronounced,
Right.
And they've got this kind of rhythm to them. It's often somewhere between like 6 and 12 hertz on the frequency scale.
Wow.
And these usually, they show up when the baby's trying to move.
Oh,
which is why, they're called action tremors.
So it's like their little bodies are having trouble coordinating those movements.
Exactly.
And then, like, to make things even worse, they're dealing with anemia, too.
Right.
Which, that means their blood isn't carrying enough oxygen to their brain.
Right. And we're talking about brains that are still developing,
Right.
Still growing and wiring themselves.
It's a lot for those little guys to handle.
Oh, it really is.
So where do researchers even start with something like this?
Well, I think one of the main places they've been looking is at nutritional deficiencies.
Okay.
There's been a ton of research into whether or not having enough of those key nutrients, things like B12, iron, zinc, magnesium, could be a factor.
Okay.
And it makes sense, right?
Yeah.
Because those are all super important for healthy brain development and function. It's the logical starting point,
That makes sense.
But then things get kind of interesting.
Yeah.
Because some scientists are looking at the idea that infantile tremor syndrome might actually be a sign that the body's recovering from being malnourished.
Oh, wow.
Like almost a rebound effect,
Yeah.
Which is a pretty wild concept to try and wrap your head around.
Yeah, that's a new one for me.
Yeah. And then there are these other avenues that researchers are looking at, like the possibility of infection being involved.
Okay.
Specifically something called infection encephalitis, which is basically when the brain gets inflamed because of an infection.
Gotcha.
And then you've got researchers who are looking at the metabolic angle too. This one gets a little technical.
Okay.
But bear with me.
All right.
So, tyrosine, right. It's an amino acid, one of those building blocks of protein.
Right.
And there's some research suggesting that maybe the way a baby's body processes tyrosine gets messed up.
Okay.
And that could be a part of this whole syndrome.
Interesting.
And we can't forget about environmental factors.
Right.
Researchers are looking into whether, toxins in breast milk could be contributing to this whole thing.
Wow.
Which is, a pretty concerning thought, honestly.
Yeah. That's up.
So we've got,
Wow.
Yeah, we've got nutritional deficiencies, we've got possible infections, we've got metabolic stuff, and then we've got maybe even environmental toxins.
Like a whole, I don't know.
It's a lot.
Yeah, it's like a lot of puzzle pieces.
It is, and the truth is, right now, there isn't one single cause that we can point to. It's most likely this,
a mix.
Yeah, a mix of a bunch of different factors all working together.
Yeah.
And that, of course, makes figuring out how to treat it even harder.
Right. So, speaking of treatment, what can be done to actually help these little ones?
Well, since we know that nutritional deficiencies are a big part of this, a lot of the treatments focus on addressing that,
Right.
So that could mean giving supplements to get those vitamins and minerals back up to where they need to be. Or it could mean making changes to the baby's diet,
Right.
depending on whether they're breastfeeding or formula feeding.
Okay.
The main goal is just to make sure they're getting the best possible nutrition,
Right.
to help support their development.
That makes sense. So what about the long-term, outlook for these babies?
Well, the good news is that most infants do actually recover within, 1 to 6 months with the right nutritional support.
Good.
But sadly, a small percentage don't make it.
Oh, wow.
Often because of complications from infections.
That's
It's tough.
Yeah.
And even for the babies who do recover, there are still concerns about, long-term effects. Right. I imagine so.
Studies are showing that some kids might have cognitive difficulties that stick around, even after they've recovered from the worst part of the illness.
That's hard.
It is.
And so it sounds like we still have a lot to learn about infantile tremor syndrome.
Oh, for sure. We need more research to figure out exactly what causes it.
Right.
And to develop better ways to treat it. And, to really understand what the long-term impacts are on these kids.
Yeah.
But the good news is, with more awareness and more research, hopefully we can solve this puzzle and make things better for these little ones.
Well, I got to say, this whole deep dive has been, it's been pretty eye-opening, honestly. I mean, we started with these really puzzling symptoms, and then we got into this whole web of potential causes.
Yeah.
And now we're realizing how much we just don't know.
Right.
But one thing's clear, right? This is a really complex condition.
Absolutely.
And it definitely needs more attention.
Yeah.
More research.
And, if you're listening to this and you want to learn more, there are resources out there. You can check out medical journals, reputable health websites, that sort of thing.
Absolutely.
And, for those of you who are parents out there, if you were facing this diagnosis, what kind of questions would you want scientists to really focus on?
Yeah.
I mean, it's something to think about. So,
yeah,
that's...
Thanks for listening.
Thanks for being here.
Yeah, of course.
Until next time.
See you then.
All right.
Bye.
Bye.